We're here today and we're gonna... Oh, second, sorry. Oh, look at this, I just got a message. Dear Fresh Start, want to buy in a regional town. On paper it looks perfect. In person, the train skips evenings, the cafe's opening soon, and a rooster calls dawn at 2 a.m. What should I avoid so I don't have to make a bad buy? Kind regards, Jim.
It's funny you say rooster, because last night I was actually having a shower and I looked down, I had this big...
Thanks, Frank. We've actually never done viewer requests before, but let's give it a crack.
Fresh start, avoid these 5 mistakes.
Population size. Now, normally in an LGA, we look around that 20,000 as a minimum of the size of the whole LGA, including all the suburbs in there. There are always there's underlying ones that we've invested in that have 11, 12, 15,000 people in the whole LGA that we look at the economy and we say, okay, that can be a great location. People think capital cities are the best property markets because they've got the biggest populations and jobs are there, but it's not the case. If you look at Australia, there's only 8 capital cities, and out of the 8, they're not even the best property markets in the country. There's places like Townsville, Dubbo, Warrnambool that have done quite well over the years and outperform capital city. Take in consideration the economy of that area, okay, even if the population's at 10,000 people or 100,000 people, what's that economy doing? Is it a powerhouse economy? Is it diverse? Okay, because if the economy is diverse with different industries driving the economy, for example, it's got multiple sectors, like it's got agriculture, manufacturing, it's got retail trades, education, and say hospitality or whatever it may be, versus a town that just has mining or has one, or let's say agriculture only. Those areas there, regardless of how big the population is, that's a high risk. So we look at more the economy. Population size is quite important, but of course, I think it's not the be-all, end-all. I've bought in areas that have 10,000 people. Places like Bowen in Queensland, a location that, of course, it's part of the Whitsundays, but it's a really, really small suburb that's far out from the Airlie Beach, and that market there has grown at least 50-60% since we purchased there for our clients. So we're buying properties in the 300k, and now all those properties worth 500k, some even worth close to 600 grand. So it just comes down to the economy when it comes to that.
Number 2 is how close a property is to a metro city versus it being in a regional town. I made this mistake for my first 3 properties. You would know if you've been watching this channel for a while that I purchased my first 2 properties, both in the same apartment complex. They were around the corner from where I lived, almost in the heart of the city, 7 kilometres from Melbourne CBD. Both of those assets I sold, one for $20,000 more than what I purchased it for 8 years later, and another one I sold for $20,000 less 6 years later. So both those assets essentially had zero capital growth over that period. Now, it had nothing to do with it being close to a city. It had nothing to do with it being close to a regional town. It had to do with the fundamentals were all f***ed up. And it's the exact same thing. If I purchased a house with all the great fundamentals on a good street in Melbourne in 2018 or 2019 when it was at the peak of the market, by 2024, 2025, the asset would actually be worth essentially the same. Now, obviously, that's a very big statement, and there's some cities or some regions that have performed well over that 5 or 6 year period, but ultimately, Melbourne has been the worst performing city over the last 5-6 years. It's the same of Queensland and Brisbane of 2012 to 2019, right? Essentially did nothing. So you need to get the fundamentals right. Don't worry about if it's in a capital city or if the asset's in a regional town. Are the fundamentals, what's driving that particular economy? Is it at the right time to be buying in that particular region? Those are the things that are going to determine whether or not your market or your property is going to actually perform, not if it's in a city that is regional versus whether it's in a capital city. This white picket fence makes this home look absolutely fantastic. It doesn't matter if the gardens are well maintained or whether there's 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms. What matters is the fundamentals and what is driving that particular economy and where that asset is going to be over the next 5, 6, 10 years. Look at them as assets and look at them as purely number and data. That is all. We often hear that the region must be within close proximity to the capital city. And that's just not how property works. There's a whole bunch of other metrics that actually make a lot more of an impact onto whether or not a region is going to have substantial growth outside of whether it's close to a capital city or not. What is important though is that there are train systems. Not that you need to be reliant on it, and not that it's going to be the determining factor of whether you're going to invest in a region, but I'm on a train right now and it takes us an hour to get back to Melbourne CBD.
When it comes to picking the right investment property, it's not about what you emotionally like about the property and what you would actually personally live in. It's about where the property is situated. We have a look at all these properties around Melbourne, Sydney, in these little suburbs or big suburbs that are, you know, close to proximity to certain things or certain amenities, and there might be small blocks of land, or this is an old house that's worth millions and millions of dollars, and that's because of the location. So it's the same principle when you're buying in these regional towns and any other city, of course, as well, to make sure that property is in the right area, because it's not about what the property looks like, it's the land that's the most important part. That's what appreciates. Land is king, not the asset. The asset depreciates, that's why you get depreciation reports, and you can write the fixtures and fittings off every single year and lower your taxable income, but we're not looking at that. We're looking at what's going to give us the most value, what's going to grow the most for our future, for retirement. So there you have it. They are the 5 tips to avoid when buying in a new location. And if you found this video helpful, you're probably going to find one of these other videos helpful as well.
There you go. To your success, Jim. Hopefully you listen to our advice. Bye-bye.